I will pass you over to Maria. Maria comes to us from the Ministry of Environment in Finland. Thank you very much, Maria, for agreeing to take part. And I will pass it over to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Chris. And yeah, it's an honor to be here. Thank you. Thank you for letting me come and explain the national view on how to implement this highly important convention at a national level. And so I do come from Finland. I'm from the Ministry for Environment. I'm the special advisor and the administrative authority for the Ramsar Convention. We work together with the focal point for national focal point for Ramsar Convention, Tiia Tanskanen, from Parks and Wildlife in Finland. My responsibilities in the ministry comprise mainly of species protection, mainly at the moment wolf, but also birds, which is very connected to wetlands as an issue. And first, I would like to highlight, even though I speak from the Finnish perspective, I try to say that even though countries are very different in terms of how we are implementing and what our resources are available, I'm trying to give an example of one country, how we are implementing, but that does not say that every country should be implementing the convention in a similar manner. But perhaps this gives an example of how certain types of cooperation and tools can be used also elsewhere. And so obviously from Finnish perspective, Finland is obviously one of the oldest members of the convention, the second country in the world actually to sign the convention in 1975, which means that obviously Finland has had a long expertise on wetland conservation. Not only do we have a lot of wetlands as well in terms of, because the convention's wetland definition is very broad. Finland, for example, has tens of thousands of lakes, inshore waters that are included in wetlands. And also, Finland is one of the most important places for mires, which means swampy lands and bogs. And together, Finland and the Nordic countries have a very special role in protecting that particular type of wetland. And at the moment, Finland has 49 Ramsar sites, and hopefully, obviously, increasing. And they cover roughly 785,000 hectares by land. By no means probably the most land mass, as was the question just before we recessed for break. But even though coming from a Finnish perspective, there are 172 states currently as state parties to the convention, which is, if I think about it, it's like, imagine all the possibilities that 172 states can both nationally and internationally, and even in a local cooperation, achieve together by joining their efforts to conserve wetlands. I mean, that's amazing. So 172, there are also 172 ways of implementing the convention, and it's really up to the state itself how to make it best to work for their purposes. Certain reporting tools are mandatory, that have to be done, but in a local, more broader national level, it is up to the state to choose which sites it gathers of importance and wants to be Ramsar sites. And in terms of, from Finnish perspective, we have those 49 Ramsar sites, but they are also at the same time Natura 2000 sites. So we have in Finland a very overlapping structure with the European Union, where they are also at the same time Ramsar sites and Natura 2000 sites. So the cooperation works very well on an EU level, which is one way to highlight the importance of contributing and cooperating locally and regionally, if possible. It definitely enhances the national level of implementation to a higher level. And so I would encourage states to form alliances and cooperation between each other to make the convention even better than what it is. And we have, for example, as a real life example, we are bringing together experts in Ramsar Wetland Working Group that was functioning from 2016 to 2020. And it also included representatives from the government, but also civil society, scientists, and so on. So it really engaged a lot of experts to come together, and a report was produced and a program as well. So this is a national level example of implementing the convention, in addition to obviously the Ramsar sites and increasing the number and the land mass of the Ramsar sites. What was found obviously in the wetland working group was that the state of wetlands is alarming, as has obviously is very blatant to the whole of the world, in that sense that roughly half of the wetland types in the Baltic Sea, that's the closest sea to Finland, and we have a long coastline, including the coastline and inland, are classified as threatened. And so these working groups and their reports, they can have very long-standing impacts on how, based on this report, decisions can be then made further. If we can define what the state of the Ramsar sites or the different wetland areas in a country are, then obviously more pressure can be put to the decision makers to make sure that, first of all, we try to make the situation better, and also try to preserve and conserve even more land to help achieve the convention goals. And as a lawyer, I must say that a strong legislative basis is a must in any country to implement the convention. So it is vital that not only has a country obviously ratified and signed a convention, but it has to be implemented in the legal system of any country. So what individual countries do, it has broader impact if things are done together, and putting together 172 countries obviously can make a huge difference when put together 172 ways of implementing the convention. And so no one way of implementing a convention could be regarded as insignificant, but it is part of the bigger picture of bringing better wetland conservation for the whole world. And so in this regard, we have very close EU coordination, as well as Nordic cooperation within wetland conservation. And currently, obviously, we are discussing with the EU coordination in Brussels because of the approaching standing committee meeting in June in Switzerland that we have. And so EU is bringing their joint questions together and joint statements together. And this makes it stronger from a regional point of view as well. And Finland is part of that. And then in a national point of view, we do a lot of cooperation within my unit with my teammates from other conventions, notably the CBD, so Convention for Biological Diversity, and the IPBES Scientific Panel, and Convention for Migratory Species, and we have a very well-functioning biodiversity coordination group, which means that then the synergies of and the connections between other multinational environmental agreements, which was discussed earlier before lunch as well, are taken strongly into account. And this also means that the Ramsar Convention then, because I am part of this group that aligns these conventions together, this means then that Ramsar Convention on wetlands is taken into account when my colleagues are in the world talking about biodiversity in another context of a convention. So this is vital, and this is a vital aspect of in any national level, is to increase the cooperation within the government of one country to align wetland conservation, so it becomes more cross-cutting and streamlined, that it becomes sort of an everyday subject among other subjects, because wetlands obviously are home to a variety of different species and biodiversity. So, and from an ecosystem point of view as well, that this is vital, key point that at the moment I personally I'm addressing very strongly, which is also to say that I will also be attending this summer. There is a UN environmental program course on the synergies between multinational environmental agreements. And this is held in Helsinki, and I will be taking part of it with a very broad international group of experts, try to find more synergies between different conventions, and this is definitely the key for enhancing the implementation of the convention, both nationally and internationally. So this is very important to keep in mind. I have to say that even though it can be quite high to say that, oh yes, we need to do a lot nationally to enhance the implementation of a convention, but at the same time, you must keep in mind that and mention the lack of resources and barriers in certain instances to implement nationally, which means that we might need more education, how to report, we might need more funding to do so. And here the key is to find ways how to open these barriers, because situations vary from country to country and challenges as well, to ensure that there is a truly effective implementation on the field, and not just beautiful words on a paper. Like I stated earlier, that from a legal perspective, it's very important to have a strong legal background for implementing. But at the same time, you must ensure that that legal framework is not just a piece of paper, but it can actually be enhanced on the implementation level on the field. So this is key to it. And therefore, it is very important to keep in mind the diversity of state parties and variety of practices and methods to find ways how to implement the convention even better. And I think the best way to do that is definitely by sharing different practices and different practices and methods and experiences with other countries to find ways how to maybe do things better and also more effectively, because time is also running out. We have to keep in mind that wetlands are, for the most part, not doing well. We need to enhance our efforts to become better and quicker and more efficient in implementing the convention. And this is the momentum to do so. We are at the cross point or a tipping point where every country has to acknowledge that we need to do more. And that's why we need more resources in every way to make this happen. Definitely, I feel like the international level and communicating with many different experts who are dealing with wetlands is the key, the cooperation, and keeping checks and balances wherever wetlands are part of the decision making. This is definitely the key to conserving wetlands and doing it better. And yeah, I would like to stop there. And if you have any questions, I'd like to answer definitely. But on a more encouraging note, I would like to finish that it's definitely a strength to have 172 national implementation ways and also 172 countries coming together for wetland conservation. So I hope that momentum stays strong.